again, this is just the beginning part of the program. We are displaying a couple of messages. You're going to do something similar to this in your exercise, but you're going to need at least one more counter and I believe an additional variable that you're going to have to initialize up at the top. So keep that in mind. Here what are we doing here? Here we go into this while. You can see how we're making use of break to trigger the exit from the while loop when they enter 999. We put it in there as an elif. So if they enter this number, it exits this while loop altogether. So note it also in the if elif nested part that's within the while loop, there's an order here. There's a logical order. They're coded in the sequence in which the conditions are most likely to be true, right? So a valid entry, we're saying a valid entry, this first if, is most likely. And then we are assuming that the stop command is second most likely, and that an invalid entry, which triggers this, is least likely. And there's other ways you can arrange this, but this kind of makes sense from a logical point of view in terms of what you're trying to do. Okay. And so we have that one. What else do we have? We've got, here's future value. Okay. And this one is the example where we're asking about monthly investment. Let's run this quickly. Take a look at your exercise. Notice the use of this outermost while loop. And this is the mechanism that allows the user to keep entering in yes if they want to go through the exercise again and compute new amounts. What does that mean? Well, let's take a look. Okay, so we run it. We saw a piece of code that was like this, but it didn't allow the user to enter any information. So they're investing 100 a month, and the yearly interest rate is 12, which means the monthly interest rate is going to be 1. It's going to be divided by, actually, the monthly interest rate is going to be 0.01. And we'll see that calculation in the program. And then the number of years is 10. This just prints out the future value. It doesn't print it out during each month. If you say yes, and let's enter twice as much, save up 200 a month with the same interest rate and the same number of years, the future value should be twice as much, right? And it is, I guess, 91, yeah, 82. So this is, you end up with twice as much money. Okay, so we could look at the code, but I want to show you your doesn't initialize variables because all the variables that it uses are entered by the user. So these lines here are where the variables get initialized by way of user input. Notice we're forcing monthly investment to be a float because it should be, it's dollars and cents. Yearly interest rate to be a float. The only tricky part about this, if there is one, you have to convert the yearly interest rate into monthly. And because they're entering a number like 12, in order to put that into percent, you have to divide that yearly interest rate by the number of months in a year, but you're not done then. You still have to divide it by 100, right? Because if they say the yearly interest rate is 12, the monthly interest rate as a percentage is not 1, it is 0.01. So you've got to do this 3-part division to get a monthly interest rate. And then the rest is pretty straightforward. Again, the outer while loop controls the ability of the person to continue with the exercise. Okay, let's take a quick look at what I've asked you to do. If you look in that exercise folder, you'll notice there's also this one, test scores starting. So you should open this. This should be your first template, and use this, build on this, and keep making changes. I can't remember why I had all those lines commented out, but I do. And so what does this do? Well, this is the one where they enter in valid. You count how many test scores. Here, let's run it. Okay, so enter end, the string end to end the input. I believe this thing allows you to enter as many scores as you want to. And then if you enter properly validated scores, it will add them all up and it'll compute the average. If you do it again, and I didn't want to type that, I wanted to type yes. Let's say you enter end right away. Okay, that's no good. You get an error. Okay, so I want you to fix that, and I want you to put in a lot more data validation. Here, let's try it again. What happens if they enter? It does check, right? It does, just like that little piece of code we saw before. It increments this counter for 1 by 1 for each valid score they enter. I want you to also insert a counter for the number of invalid scores, as well as do perform quite a bit of data validation. Here, let's try this. Okay, let's do it again. And let's say we enter an invalid score. Okay, it caught that. Score discarded, try again. Let's enter another invalid score. We'll say -5. It caught that. This is your starting program. Gives you a correct prompt. Let's say you enter a real number. Okay, that's bad. It gives you an exception. You shouldn't do that. So what do I ask you to do? I ask you to extend this, and this tells you everything. First of all, the beginning change is this number 4. I want you to change the keyword for ending the execution of the program from end to stop. But I want you to get rid of that annoying error where they enter end right away and it throws an exception. Okay, you need to get rid of that. I want you to count the number of valid scores, which is the range 0 to 100, and count the number of invalid scores and display the invalid scores in the output. Okay, it didn't do that. It should also accept real numbers, not just integers. You could say, well, they're test scores, so why mess around with real numbers? Well, because I said so. And just, test your ability to allow something besides integers in there. Okay, so ideally you'll get something like this. Now, if you do this on the existing program, if you enter end in right away, you don't get any output, you get an exception. Okay, so it should gracefully allow the user, even if they enter stop, should tell them the total scores, the average score, the number of valid and discarded, but should allow them the opportunity to try again. And again, if they enter stop without entering any numbers, it shouldn't end with an exception, which is what the starting program does. Okay, so you should be able to do this. You need to test what they're entering. Okay, and then this example here just does some extensive validation. Okay, so it needs to check all these things. Notice we're entering real numbers and it doesn't hiccup. When we enter a number greater than 100 or less than 0, it does parrot back the error message, prompts the user not to enter a number like that, to that score is discarded, but it's also counting these up, right? In this run here, 2 discarded scores were entered, and there's a little counter that's telling you, okay, there were 4 valid scores, if you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 invalid scores. Okay, so it should print this stuff out and should give you the total score and the average score. Okay, so that's really what that example illustrates. Also down here, more data checking. Real numbers are fine. In this case, we entered 3 valid numbers and 1 invalid number. Counter should take care of that. Okay. And then again, this is just more extensive data checking. This one I suspect will be a little more challenging for you, because you're going to have to use, I believe I tell you at the beginning, you need variables, number valid, invalid, each entered test score, score total, and average score. So there's 5 variables for you. You're going to have while loops. I did it with one nested inside of another one, particularly to control the why to continue. You can copy that from a program, and another one to check for stop. Okay, and then within those, in some fashion, you're going to have if-else statements to validate the entered test score ranges and to print out prompts if the invalid scores are entered. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I don't ask you to make any more error prompts. I just use the same ones that they did. So give this a try if you have a chance, and we'll look at what I did next week. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. Again, thanks for coming. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me.